Hi, I'm Josiah Bellison, and this is my video on how to solve the tragedy of commons. There's a lot of information here, so just stick with me. Got it. So, the idea behind the tragedy of commons is that if you have a limited resource, if any one person decides, rather than to focus on the collective, but to focus on just themselves and take more than they need, you'll run out, and this limited resource is rather than being infinite because of, certain balances, it will run out. So, the way that you fix this, from my perspective, is to look for balance. It's been shown through in science, you can check sources and whatnot, but balance actually promotes health. People who are better at it, balancing their stress, balancing their budget, balancing their nutrition, balancing everything, live longer. That just is how it works. Yoga as well. Getting better at balancing all of your different muscles makes you live longer. Anyways, let's see here. Sorry, I've got a document here that it's got a bunch of different little details here. For example, going for quick hits of dopamine, it's not as sustainable as focusing on the happiness of everybody. This is pretty common when it comes to happiness and pain, because if you share happiness, it's essentially doubled, since you are now happy and so is the other person. Hopefully, they'd be happy for you. And then, with pain, the more that you share it, the less pain that you feel, and the less pain everybody. Well, they'll share in it, they'll understand it, and hopefully you can find some solace in that. So, using that concept, you could conclude that to optimize your happiness in the long term, you would need to allow yourself to get hurt with feelings like uncertainty, with feelings like fear, with any sorts of feelings, so that down the road and in the long term, your happiness will increase. Let's see. The fundamental issue I see when others come about talk about the topic of math is the purpose of it. Sorry, I'm going to be jumping from topic to topic to topic to topic. I'll try to sort it when I start posting this. I'll sort it into little chapters. But the topic of math is... The big misunderstanding I see with it is that math isn't just used to predict things or do equations or all that, stuff. Math, as a concept, was created because every single person saw a pattern within life and decided that this math was the pattern that explained everything. Math was consistent with everything you look at, all of it. So less of just numbers and whatnot, it's laws of life. That's what math is. So, understanding that lets you know just a little bit how important how math is. Just important. Just, math's important. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say math is important. Anyways. After that, now you know math is important. Let's talk about macro and micro. So, looking at things microscopic, there's less variables to deal with, because it's more, you get to see exactly what's happening. Like when you see a hydrogen atom go with a oxygen atom and they link, you get to see that, and there's less mystery. It's just very obvious that the protons and electrons and all that shit, why they go together. And then once you see that something is consistent on a microscopic scale, you can sort of assume it'll be pretty similar once you get to a macro scale, which is great. It's not always consistent, because once you get bigger and bigger and bigger, more and more variables get added, more and more junk gets thrown in, and it won't be exactly the same, but it'll still follow it. This is very important to understand, because everything in the world is just a collective group of atoms that decided that it would be very convenient if they banded together to form a being. For example, your body is made of different cells, and within each of these cells is a bunch of microcells that, like the mitochondria, it's the powerhouse of the cell, but that itself is its own system that decided to form because, oh, there you go, I know how I can now make little things in your body that produce energy and whatnot, and then decided how to break it down. So, now that you know that, it makes a lot of sense why you'd want to look things deeper and deeper down. Down to the microscopic, down to its center. Let's see here. Oh, because of this, try to think of everything as though it were a math equation. So to be able to manipulate and change numbers on one side of an equation, one must also do the counter variable on the other side. So, to add x to one side of an equation, you have to minus x from the other. And just like in math and in life, to add happiness to one side of an equation, you must add sadness to the other. So, to be happy, you must be sad. To be empty, to feel empty, you must feel full later, you know? All of these different topics, every single concept has a counter concept to it. And they are very important to understand. Without emptiness, there can't be fullness. Without love, there cannot be hate. Without pleasure, there is no pain. Without matter, there is no antimatter or dark matter. Without trust, there are no lies. Without entropy, there is no neg entropy, which is the idea that things will sort of fall into balance over time and form systems. Without chaos, there is no control. Without problems, there are no solutions. You see this all of the time with conflict resolution in stories. A conflict is introduced, it'll rise, the action, so it gets to a certain point, the climax, then it'll fall, falling action, resolution. That's how conflict is. Then, Chekhov's gun is a good example of this. If you see a thing in a movie, you then ask yourself, why does this thing exist? Why did the writer choose to put this gun here on this table? Probably because it'll show up later. You know, that sort of idea. An important concept to note is that true perfection doesn't exist. And it cannot exist anywhere. Because if it did, then there wouldn't be a point to anything. There would be no point in existence. And because of that, anything and everything must show a degree of imperfection. Like in nature. Fractals. You ever heard of the concept of fractals? Fractals are patterns that, or let's see here, shapes that when you look closer and closer into them, repeat themselves infinitely and infinitely and infinitely all the way down to a certain point. Perfect fractals, as far as I am aware, have never been observed, ever, in something. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but what we have seen in nature is semi-fractals, which are shapes that when you get closer and closer on a microscopic scale, repeat themselves in a very similar fashion, not the exact same, but very similarly. Stuff like leaves, and I'm trying to think of where else we've seen fractals, but I know we've seen them in leaves and branches and whatnot. Well, there's that idea. Okay. Understanding this, it makes coming to truths and finding solutions a cakewalk. When you notice an issue or a problem, ask yourself what the exact opposite of that would be. And if you can't think of one, well, then you probably are missing something. So delve deeper into the problem and find different intricacies where opposites can be applied step by step until you reach a more balanced center point. And have come to the conclusion, or, well, in an opposite sense as well, ask yourself, why is this solution the one that we came up to for this problem? Or why does this feature exist? Or, you know, what Why is this the way that we chose to solve this problem? Then, do what I said. Think about the exact opposite of it until you come to, well, this was what the problem was, and this is what the solution was, and what different steps it took to get all the way from point A to point B. Once you do that, it's a lot easier to understand a whole lot of different things. Oh yeah, you'll recognize how easy problems are to solve. You know how to dismantle them, get to the center of the issue. Oh, and then, now that you've dismantled this big concept and gotten to the center of the issue, try to rebuild from the center using what you learned from breaking it down, and then do it in a more intentional way, or in a way that would solve later issues. For example, place something that you would need whenever you would leave the house right next to the door with a hook or on a rack. That's why people put keys next to doors on hooks. Or there's a shoe rack right next to your door, because now anytime you go to the door and go, ah, shoot, where are all those things that I need? Well, they're right there. They're right there next to you. Yeah, if you do that, problems will exist less and less and less and less. Use this concept when it comes to any statement that's given to you to try to understand the exact opposite of that statement, as well as what that statement is trying to say, and then slowly but surely whittle down your understanding until you've reached a more informed opinion, using both sides of both arguments and whatnot. Okay. I have no idea why this is the next idea on this this graph, or I mean this list of things, but let's talk about it. Why not? I'll just talk about everything here. This is a far stretch, and could just not be true, but I think it's a topic worth delving into. If life exists, then death must also exist, which is obvious. But what exactly does it mean for something to die? This question, something I've pondered for a long time, and here's what I think the answer is. People who fall into comas, or people who've taken the drug DMT, basically the way that DMT works is somebody creates pure, raw death, puts it in a jar, puts little filters in, and then extracts just enough death chemical that when you put it in you don't die, but that's what it is. It's just the chemicals that are shoved into your brain when you die, extracted in a plant, and then just put into you. But when people take that, or they fall into a coma and get really close to death, they start to go a little crazy and say things that make not a lot of sense, or are very far-fetched, or time stops existing, or entire lives are lived. I don't think this means that they're lying. There's obviously some truth behind it. And the pattern that I've noticed is that people say a lot that they feel like they lived an entirely different life, but they are still aware of their old one that just ended. And I believe that the reason they're aware of the old one is because they died in a sense, yet their brain is still there. And the hippocampus that holds all of their memories is, well, still there. And the amygdala that holds all of their emotions, well, it's still right there. So if that's to be believed, what the brain, then we can try and think about what this means. And I think that what it means is that what the brain would usually do when somebody dies is transport them to some other place. Whether that be an entirely different life, an entirely different universe, I don't know. Whether it be deeper into the brain and deeper into the consciousness, that I also don't know. It could just be a different part of the brain, and there's some sort of something that stops time there that allows it to be very long. Or it is just a different universe, I'm not sure. Think about this as well. It's consistent with this idea as well. When people take hallucinogenics, such as acid, people who took them while they were really anxious and afraid tend to spiral into madness, or see demons, or talk to things that aren't there, sort of deal. While those who were happy or in a good mind state when they took this drug feel like it's the happiest they've ever been, or everything's rainbowy for some reason, or all these different things. Now, I find that very interesting, because why is it that this drug can do two wildly different things to people, based just off of how they think? Food for thought. I don't quite know the answer to that. I might look into it more. But I find this important because an observation that nurses and doctors have made is that once somebody's about to die, I think it's like a week or something before they die, they become the happiest they've ever been. They just get straight up out of that bed and start walking around, talking to people, being lovely, loving everything, loving life. Which is sad, very sad, because the doctors and the nurses know exactly why they are doing that, and it is because they are about to die. But all of the loved ones who are seeing their, potential grandparent or whoever this is, this person that they love, come back up and be on the up and up, that's hard for them to grapple with. However, I think that the reason the brain does this is for the very same reason that, like I said, when somebody takes drugs, when they're in a happy mood, they understand and they see more and they feel happier. When somebody's in a bad mood, they spiral into madness. Your brain is aware of this and is trying its best to not spiral you into madness when it decides to shoot you full of these chemicals. Like, the ones in DMT. Now, usually, the brain would shoot you full of these chemicals seconds or maybe minutes before you die. So, I think it's doing that in an attempt to take your consciousness and shoot it someplace else. And then because your brain and your body has now passed and died, great. It can't come back. Now that consciousness has to stay over there, and it's somebody else's problem. That's how I see it. That's what I think happens when you die. But I think that these atoms that were your consciousness still have some sort of memory of you, and how you work, and how you learn, and all of that. So it could be in an attempt for it to be like an iterative process, that each time your consciousness inhabits a different area, it affects the next time that this happens, the next time it dies, and then gets reborn. So that it can drive further into true harmony and sort of balance in a system. That's how I view that concept. Okay, on to the next idea. Like forces repel, whilst opposite ones attract. I think the idea behind this is that it's the universe attempting to learn something. If you take two clashing ideas or two clashing forces, and put them and then you introduce space between them, and get them further and further and further apart, while still, in this side, having a bunch of different opposite forces, and a bunch of different opposite forces here, these things are very far apart now that they can all intermix and choose how to solve the problems themselves. So this area over here that is now very far from this area can choose to find however it wants to reach balance or a harmonious state, while this area over here can choose however it wants to reach a balance or a harmonious state. I think it's why we observe space to be infinitely expanding, and everything to be pushing further and further and further apart. It's because it's trying to make sure that these different sources that are now in harmony don't mess up these other ones, while also still, just trying everything out, giving it all a shot. So, I think this explains gravity, too. When things tend to gravitate towards bigger things. So, when something bigger is present and has a lot of mass, other things are like, oh, cool, that thing, I want to go towards the thing. And it'll do that. It'll go towards the thing as much as it can. Anyways, okay. I'm not sure where that thought was going. I'm sure it was going somewhere important, but I'll explain it if you have any questions on it. A bunch of different opposites that stuck together to make, like glue, make bigger holes and more complex systems due to balances and checks caused by nature, or by whatever balances and checks are put into place. Okay, I guess that's how I chose to separate that thought. That's really weird. It seems like all of this is in an attempt to facilitate chaos and randomness, and I think it's why opposing forces are added into the world all of the time. It's to study and to try to understand. What the universe's goal is, I think, is explainable with fractals that I mentioned earlier. As because they aren't exactly the same, but they're really similar, they must be doing something right, and they must be doing it somewhat consistently. I think that the general idea can be I just reread the same one. I think the general idea is to make everything have systems and orders by adding complexity to varying degrees because it feels satisfying. And so whatever thing you need is exactly where it is supposed to be. More specifically, I think a fractal is formed when a bunch of consistently inconsistent forces act upon a thing for an extended period of time that as time moves on, the flower, or whatever is showing the phenomenon, learned to lessen the amount of space it took up and have meaning behind every spot where there is an atom, where there's not too much space, that if something were to attack this atom, it would break into the other stuff and go blah everywhere and ruin everything. But also not too much space where it's needless. So that way you are conserving space while still accounting for issues. And also this matches up with Fibonacci's golden ratio. As while it spirals outwards and outwards and outwards and outwards, it leaves space for things to move and change. This is probably why not everything we've observed in life is a fractal, but why many things we do observe in the wild are fractals or semi-fractals, as I've said earlier. Now, if you can take this concept and apply it to the way that you think and the way that you learn, starting from a central point and slowly but surely adding the old information you knew plus other new information, it'll make the new information you have expand infinitely onward and onward and onward in a controlled enough way that whenever you want to change the way you think or get new information, you can adjust without messing anything up since, well, you have enough space to do so. That you can, it can grow and become perfect. Your ideas can become more grounded and look prettier. They'll look more like a fractal. They'll be less blocky and disorganized and all over the place, but they'd be a concentrated idea that grew slowly but surely over time. Okay. I think that no one idea or concept can exist without an equal and opposite one existing, much like the laws of physics and thermodynamics and a lot of other things. This means for everything that could make you happy, there's an equal and opposite amount of sadness created in the world, either through you or through other people. If you understand that concept, it shows just how important it is for you to try and make your thoughts and feelings simulate a wave or a sine graph, where it's consistently going up and down and up and down, matching the amount of happiness you have with the amount of sadness you have, so that you don't create too much sadness and you don't create too much happiness, and it's all done within you. More specifically, when we're talking about sine graphs, they have frequencies, which is how often they do a wave, and then they have amplitude, which is how big the waves are. And I think that if you have a higher amplitude, you risk things a lot more. Take, for example, happiness and sadness. When you get really high in the happiness area, you start to reach mania. That's what you start to reach, where you get a little crazy. And then that happens for enough time that you fall all the way back down, and then you become really, really deeply depressed. Which is why I think it's important to low amplitude. Keep it as low as you can, or as high as you can without risking things. Find your threshold, basically. Then, with frequency, depending on how much time... I like high frequency. I like things to be changing constantly, over and over and over. So, I like to cry for about 10-15 minutes, and then be really happy for the next 10-15 minutes, onward and onward. Back and forth sort of deal. Oh man, my treadmill stopped working. Let me turn that back on. But everybody's different. If you want things to be less frequent and take more time in between, go for a lower frequency. Oh man, now it's real slow. Let's do that. Whatever. Okay. Oh, yeah, because if you're more consistently... Oh, this is why I like high frequency as well. If you're more consistently on both sides of the sadness and the happiness, and it's more tight like that, the easier it is for you to match with other people. Because you won't be happy for too long of a period to clash with their happiness, or you won't be sad for too long of a period at the same time as them, sort of deal. So if somebody is really sad, and they're on this dip for a very long time, somebody who is more consistently like this can be happy enough times throughout that cycle that they're still able to help that person. So that's why I like high frequency, but person-to-person basis. Oh, this is also why, getting hurt makes your body heal and feel pleasure. This is why, when you succeed, you first had to fail. That's why a bunch of different things, basically. I also think that the younger generation, because we're more used to quick hits of dopamine and high amounts of it due to the internet and how it capitalizes off of your attention and trying to make you as happy as possible so you stay for as long as possible, that we've kind of just grown accustomed to the frequency part being really quick. So every 10 seconds we go all over the place. That's what I think is happening as you get younger. Just because of how easy it is to get information nowadays. Like, if you want to learn how does physics work, you just Google it. But back in the day, if you wanted to learn how physics work, you had to, simulate it. You had to take a heavy metal object and just drop it. And you're like, oh, well, that happened. Okay. Once you start to understand both emotions and just sort of everything in this way, a lot of other things make sense. Like the reason your brain likes certain colors. Colors are just wavelengths. Just search it up. I was about to try to give you examples, but I really can't. The shorter wavelength ones are more like red, I think, and then there's like UV and whatnot. And I don't know which frequencies create what colors, but I do know that they are waves. And I think that when those waves align better with your internal emotional waves, the more you like it. And that's why every certain person likes different colors, and that's why every single person likes different sounds, because once again, sounds are waves. It's why every single person likes different smells, because once again, smell is waves. It's why everybody likes all sorts of different things. I think it's also why people like other people. Attraction, I believe, when somebody goes to date somebody, and what it is that they are looking for within that person, whether this be consciously or subconsciously, is whatever they are really bad at. So, somebody who is really organized and really put together and good at controlling themselves is looking for somebody who is really impulsive and will just kind of do whatever they feel. That's why you see people who are like mathematicians and statisticians, like, let's see, what specifically am I thinking of? Math people, the ones who sit behind the computers and the cubicles. I don't remember I don't know what I'm trying to think of, but those people end up with, like, rock stars or surfers. People just like doing stuff. It's also why people who are more introverted and like to be alone end up with people who are more, extroverted and just love talking to everybody. It's because they are able to balance out your faults while still harmonizing with your strengths. Because if you are both happy very often, you can help each other get more happy, or your waves will add to each other, and the amplitude will be higher, but not through just the one person, but through the both of you. I think it's why you need to look within different people for things that are similar, while still keeping other things very different. It's like the yin-yang, they're the same colors and whatnot. It's a circle with, and then here's a bit of black, there's a bit of white. This black and this white is the other part of the person that you're really good at, that you help them. You fill that hole for them, basically, in a sense, while still being different enough that you two can still learn from each other and grow from each other. I got super off top. I did not read my notes at all, so let me find my spot real quick. Oh, specifically, I think that a good thing to have in common with each other is the ability to communicate, the ability to understand, a lack of fear of telling them what you think, those type of stuffs. Because those things are very important when it comes to understanding another person and when it comes to learning more about them. Yeah, those are the things that you should be looking for in what you guys share. And this also comes back into, like I was saying earlier, happiness doubles when you share it with each other, and pain halves when you share it with each other. So look for somebody who makes you feel happier when you are happy, or feels just as happy as you are when you are happy. Look for somebody who, if you tell them about something, they're going to respond with kindness and patience. They're not going to look at you with anger and resentment. It's cathartic. That's what it is. Okay. The next step in this process, I think, is to apply the concepts of nihilism and then the concept of optimism. Let me break that down. Effectively, learn that there is no true meaning to anything. And the only reason anything has meaning, because us humans as a collective have decided that that is what it means. It doesn't mean it's true. It just means it's what everybody has widely agreed upon. Once you understand that, try to break it down. Everything that you believe, break it down, piece by piece. All the way down till that concept doesn't even exist anymore. Then, use optimism, believe in hope, believe in change, believe in happiness, and then rebuild it using this new, happier mentality. And then I think once you do that and you understand which parts serve what purpose, think of it like building a computer. You take this computer, you take out each individual part of it, you understand what this part does versus what this part does, you take the less effective parts out, replace them with newer, more effective parts using optimism, and you rebuild a better PC. Now do that with every system, every single ideology, every single thought you have, and you will just be happier for it. Think like this. Everything likes to pile up as time goes on, as though it were like a dusty shelf. The more time that a shelf sits there, the more likely it is to have dust and dirt on it. The best way to clean a really dirty thing is to get as much of it off as you can, small amounts, starting with that, until it gets bigger and bigger amounts off and bigger, and it gets easier and easier and easier and easier to clean that shelf, until eventually that shelf is just clean, fully. And then once it is, now that it's empty, put things that you like on this clean shelf, and every day, or every so often, just maintain the cleanliness by just going where things are dirty and re-sweeping. And it'll take just a little bit of time, but because you put all of that time and effort in at the start to clean it fully, it has now become a whole lot easier later to clean it partially with less time spent. This is how your body maintains its regularities, by the way. The reason you have to drink so much water is so that it can break down and, break things down in your body with the stomach acid, while also, removing the rust from the pipes that are your intestines and your liver, and removing the toxins there. And when you apply this concept to your brain, what you are doing is you are looking for harmful or untrue thought patterns and negative reinforcement loops that are spiraling you further and further into sadness. And then my light filter applies, so the lighting is going to be a little yellow. Let's fix it. There you go. Okay. Further and further into sadness. But if, on the opposite coin, if you are looking for and have a lot of happiness or very true thought patterns and positive reinforcement loops, it'll spiral you further and further into happiness. A really good book about this is The Upward Spiral. I've listed it in my APA references sheet that's in my description. Go take a look if you like it. Okay, now, the very last step of this process is to apply filters and systems so that you can pour in as much garbage as you want without any of it staying in your system. You can do this by taking everything that everybody says at face value. Take it as if it's the truth. Then, run it through the filter of how consistent it is with all of your information. So, does this new thought that they just said to you, is that consistent with what I know about this, and what I know about this, and what I got told about this, and that, and whatnot? And if it is, great, sweet. You just add a bit of nuance, and you can keep it. If it isn't, great, sweet. It was a load of horse shit. Throw it out. It's also important here to find out whether or not what they said is consistent with everything, because it itself is wrong, or you are wrong. So that's why it's important to learn as much as you can. Because it might be inconsistent just because all of the things that you have been told, well, they aren't true. Like if somebody is born, and anytime they lie, people get really happy with them, and they stop yelling at them, and they stop getting hate. That person is going to be like, sweet. So lying is how I solve every problem. Now I'll just lie, and then there you go. Great, I'm going to live happy lives, and everybody's going to be happy with me, and everything's going to work out. Is that because it's true? No. It's because it's been reinforced throughout their entire life. So, this is why it's important to understand both sides of everything. Once you do that, more and more and more and more with just every little thing, it becomes really easy to do. Because the more you do a thing, the easier it becomes, because you're used to it. And then you can start to apply it to abstract and harder to understand ideas. Take, for example, what does it mean when somebody says that they can smell color? What does that mean? What I think it means, think about something like this. Daredevil. I don't know, he's a superhero. He's a super... It's not a real thing, but there's something to learn here. Because he is blind, all of the rest of his senses are really attuned. Because he still has to be able to see the things around him so that he can, kick ass. But he can't. So, I think that the eyes are really good at determining what the waves from light mean. The nose is not. Neither is the ears. But if they don't have the eyes, they'll give it a shot. And that's what I think it means when somebody says they can smell colors. Because, well, they're trying. Their nose is like, well, let's give it a shot. Let me smell these different light waves and see if it means anything to me. Or, say for example, a phrase has texture to somebody. What does that mean? Well, let's think. A texture is how something feels when it rushes past it, pushes it against your finger. So, a phrase, when it goes through somebody's ear, how does it sound to make the noise? Like a t, 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 t sounds really, or k, k. Noises like that sound more sharp than other noises. And then once you start saying it like that, it's like, oh, okay, well this phrase sounded sharp because the words and noises I was using to make it sounded sharp. There you go. Anyways, do that more and more and more and more and more and more and more, and you'll start to see patterns that you didn't before. I think the concept specifically that I'm looking for here is neuroplasticity, which is really common the younger you are, because the older you get, the harder it becomes to break free of what you know, because you believe it so heavily. It's like, well, no, this is the truth. This is what it is, because everything I've ever seen, yep, that has to be. But the younger you are, the more you realize you don't know a whole lot. There's a lot of things you really don't understand, in the slightest. So you have to adapt. There are also people who make art that's a lot more abstract, that sometimes they don't even know the meaning of it. It's just, hey, I feel really angry, so I'm going to do a red slash here, or I feel really calm, so let's do a little bit of purple, or a little bit of blue. And once you start to see patterns within that, you can kind of get where they're coming from and what emotions it was trying to make you feel. Even more than maybe the artists themselves did. Okay, next topic. The Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here because I find it really important. The Dunning-Kruger effect is that the less somebody knows about something, the more confident they are that they are right. So, at the start, the confidence level's up here in the roof, because it's like, hey, yeah, I know everything. I know a lot about this thing. But then, as they learn more and more and more and more, they get really unconfident. Because they know, they have now become aware of what they do know versus what they don't. When what they have mastered versus what they haven't. And they realize, I am out of my depth here. I don't know as much as I think I do. Then, as this person learns more and more and more about it, the confidence starts to go back up. And then that's when you get true understanding. And that's when you get true confidence, rather than the other, fake confidence where you didn't know anything. You just kind of said it. So that's important too. Confidence does not equal truth. It sometimes equals the exact opposite. Some of the most confident people I know are some of the most stupid people I know as well. Alright. I was just sort of naming things like stages of grief and REM sleep and criminal psychology, and what to do when you notice patterns in other people. I think these are just things that I wanted to cover, but I didn't fully do. I will make videos about those in the future if it interests me. Anyways, the bigger idea of this all is to solve the tragedy of commons that I was talking about for at the beginning. And I think that if it takes just one bad egg to ruin something and ruin a whole system, would it not then follow that it just takes one really good egg to try and heal and repair all of the things that the bad egg broke? I think so. I think that the more and more good that you put into the world, the harder and harder it'll be for bad to get added to the world by these other people. And the more you can fix it. And rather than people being able to take advantage of others through lying and cheating and abusing systems. I forgot what I was saying. I lost track of that sentence, but you get my point, probably. I hope. Oh, also, if you follow this ideology and you learn as much as you can, things will just work out for you. Time becomes a lot easier because you're spending less time doing things since you understand them better. Health is a lot easier because, well, you understand how it all works. Like, here, let me show you. If I can find my remote. It fell on the ground. Like, look. Health becomes so much easier the more that you understand it all. The breaking down and repairing of muscles and whatnot, shit's a breeze. I'm gonna put this back on because I like how it looks. How do I put this on? What the hell? Oh, I was doing it right. All right. Other things will work out for you too. Not only your health, but your mood. You're just gonna be happier. Money, it'll just kind of go up and up and up. You're gonna look, you're gonna feel really successful. It's because you're succeeding. Makes sense. Rather than usually with other people, they look and they act like they're succeeding because they are lying to you. A lot of people like to do that because it makes them feel good. It's like, well, if I look like I'm doing really good, I must be. Nope. No, it's not true. You're just deceiving. Anyways, if enough people do this, and enough people follow this ideology, observational learning, when somebody sees a behavior getting rewarded, or they get rewarded for a certain behavior, they are going to repeat it. And as of right now, I've noticed a lot that people are rewarded for lying and causing problems and deceiving others and tricking them and scamming them. But once everybody as a whole is more smart and able to tell when they are being lied to, the less it's incentivized, because I can point you out on your bullshit. I can say, hey, that just isn't true. Why are you saying that? And slowly but surely, you are no longer going to be receiving the money for it, and it'll be harder and harder for these people to get money from scamming. So, once that happens, people are going to observationally learn that, oh, the way that I am going to succeed is by telling the truth, is by failing, is by trying, is by giving things a shot, is by putting forth effort. And it's by making sure that the amount of effort I get back from the amount of effort I put in is pretty close to the same. Because if it isn't, you're wasting your time. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good. Let's see here. I think that this is very important to say that entire government control, or no government existing at all, is a bad idea. Because entire government control assumes that the person who has control of everything uh, knows everything, which is impossible. They don't, and they won't, and oftentimes is likely just in it for themselves. But also, having zero control lets things like murder happen. I don't think that that should happen. I think that murder's a bad thing. So there should be some level of control, but there should not be all control. And instead, I feel like if we as a collective get better at holding each other accountable for mistakes and pointing out mistakes when we see them or inconsistencies, we will just learn and grow more and more and more, and there will be less and less need for control. Okay. If you like anything I said here, you want to know more, and you want to know where to start too. Down in the description, I put a sources page. It's also in my YouTube description. That of Google documents of where I was at when I was 16 to 17, which you can look at those if you're curious about where I used to be, or resources 18 to 19, which has an APA paper, APA formatted of a bunch of different really good EDU educational government websites, or a couple YouTube videos in there that I just think are really important as well. There is also a budget planning sheet. I just put 5 versions forth because I realized that version 4, the numbers from savings weren't accurate because they didn't account for the 401k contribution, so I added that in. And then version 5, everything is just really cute. It's explained really well. All the numbers are adding up. It tracks your taxes. You can change the amount of taxes you're paying to really easily. It's just on the tutorial page. I might make a video better explaining it if you want to know. It also has a little spot for you to put plans that you have, so you don't remember. It's like, oh yeah, hey, I'm busy 5 to 8 because I am doing this thing. So then that day you look at your time and you go, well, 5 to 8 I'm doing something, but the rest of the time I could be doing something else. And you just add more detail there and you'll better use your time. There's also a spot for like money you owe people, and then a spot for money you are owed. Then there's a spot for needs, like things you need to buy, and then there's a spot for things you want to buy. I gave examples on that tutorial page. Just give it a look if you're interested. If you do follow it, I think that your stress levels will go down, and if you are less stressed, the more thoughts, like the more time you have in your brain to learn. So, let's keep the stress low, keep the learning high. Oh, for paychecks as well, because it keeps track of all this time and the taxes and whatnot, all you have to do to estimate a paycheck or guess how much money you're going to make in a paycheck is do hours multiplied by pay. That's it. Or if you're paid in overtime, it's hours multiplied by pay plus hours times time and a half multiplied by pay. And there you go. And then the taxes are all conveniently for you there. Your how much you spent in taxes each month. There's a total, there's a federal, there's a state, there is a Medicare. Just all numbers are real there. All there for you. Oh, here. I also think that now that your stress levels are down and your learning level is high, just start doing things that you've always wanted to do before. If they're not causing harm to other people. Like, I don't want you to be causing harm to other people or yourself on purpose. And if it isn't, just sort of give it a shot. See what happens. See if you fail. See if you don't. See why you failed. See why you didn't. Just try. Try a little. Fail. Get rejected. Get told no. Just kind of keep going till you understand it the amount you wish you coulda. Because then you'll learn. You'll learn from doing that. And that's great. I think that's awesome. Also, I think it's a good idea to try to talk to as many people as you are comfortable talking to and fact checking their experiences against yours, especially if what you're trying is something they're really good at, since they're kind of gonna know everything. So, for example, I work at a manufacturing company. I'm not gonna say which one, but whenever I have a question, I just go, "Hey, you, the guy who knows metals, how does this work?" Or, "Hey, you, the guy who knows marketing, how does this work?" Or, "You, the guy who knows safety, how does this work?" "You, the guy who knows this process, how does this work?" And by doing that, I'm not usually wrong when I tell people things because they told me. My source is pretty accurate, you know? Um, yeah. Well, I don't know. That's about it. If you have any questions, just shoot them my way in the email, and I'll answer it. If anything I said was inconsistent, then I'm sorry, and I will attempt to fix it. If you like the video, share it. If you don't, then don't. Yeah. If you want other videos to watch, I already sort of sorted a good list of videos of, like, here, literally, let me just pull it up because it's right there on my channel. So it's going to be real easy. Man, where's this? Where did I put it? There it is. I have a playlist for good music, which are all a bunch of different songs that I think promote happiness and learning and understanding and just thinking. I think they're all really good, each one there. I think there's a lesson to be learned in each of them. Then there's a channel with a good list of. It's rated from, I think, most important all the way down to least important, or most credible to less credible. There's a section for good relationship and communication. There's a section for good science and understanding of the world. There's a section for good legal and political channels. And then there's a section for good entertainment. Politics is also something I could talk about if you guys want me to. But I tend not to because it's very polarizing. So, but if you find it interesting or you want to know more about it, I'm sure I can give it a whirl. That's about it. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me your time. And I hope you can learn to use yours better.